Welcome to Wellness Wednesday with Rebecca
Hi.
and me, Dave. And so we're going to try to do this once a week on Wednesday at 8 p.m. And we're inviting you to join us on Facebook, and we'll have a topic. And so today's topic is
Sabbath.
Sabbath, right? Because our world has been changing, right? We have been stuck in this thing, this pandemic, and inside, and our rhythms are all kind of screwed up. I don't know about you, but I know that my rhythm has been totally disrupted living in a household with my wonderful wife and my adorable 3 children who, are not high maintenance at all. And my schedule has been, let's be honest, it's like turned upside down. So have you noticed your rhythm's been thrown off?
Yeah, I think that's been the hardest thing. I think as I've just talked with other people, a lot of us some of our external stress has diminished a bit. We're not like running around, running our kids to sporting events. We're not having to commute to work, all of that. And yet our anxiety seems higher than ever. Some people are getting really depressed. There's all kinds of things happening. And I think there's a lot of reasons for it, but a large part of it is when your rhythms get thrown off, it creates all kind of internal anxiety. We were created to live with rhythms. And so we wanted to kind of talk about that today and over the next few weeks, how we can start to restore some harmony in our lives and kind of get our rhythms.
Harmony's good.
Yeah, back in sync. So, yeah.
Yeah. So what do you think if we're talking about like preparing for our rhythms and like this idea of a Sabbath? What does that look like? How do we prepare for that? And how do we, like, for example, like all of us are in different situations, right? So we have some people who are, they're living with, like our scenario, they're married, they're living with kids, and everything has turned upside down, no school, and cooking 3 meals a day. And there's other people that are like living alone. So they're in a scenario where they're completely isolated from themselves. There's people who are still working and working from home, and that's like become like super encompassing of like their time, and they feel like they're never turning it off. And there's other people who are like not working from home, and so there's all these crazy situations that we're finding ourselves in. So how do you prepare for like a true Sabbath?
Yeah, and it's interesting because I've been thinking and reading a lot about trying to get a Sabbath in my life for quite a while. And then this whole thing happened, and I thought, you know what? Now more than ever, I think establishing a Sabbath is so important. I know that some of you listening probably have already been practicing Sabbath, and for you, this might mean just tweaking it a bit. My guess is that most of you do not really practice regular Sabbath. This is like it is a core spiritual practice, and yet our culture resists it so much. It does not support it in any way, and so you have to be so incredibly intentional to start creating a Sabbath. And it can take a while. It can take months actually to really weave this into your lifestyle to the point where you've adopted it as a ongoing practice. And so I guess I would encourage you to, even though it's a weird time, to start taking some steps toward developing a Sabbath. And so regardless of your circumstance, one thing that's important, Eugene Peterson, who's written a lot about Sabbath, he said, we cannot rightly understand Sabbath apart from work, nor rightly understand work apart from Sabbath. So the whole idea of Sabbath is a rhythm of work, rest, work, rest, work, rest. And so we are called to work, and we are called to be productive, and then we're called to stop working and to have a day of rest and delight and, to like refill our souls and all of that. So if right now you are not working, you may, like in terms of a paid vocation, either you've lost your job or your work looks very different, then you need to be thinking about what is the work God's calling me to right now. So like for me, I was teaching full time where I had to get up and go to my job as well as what I'm doing as a pastor. So my schedule is really imposed on me. Now I have no teaching responsibilities, but now my kids are home. And so I have responsibility now with them to help keep them on schedule and to do some actual homeschooling with my kids and to meet their needs in different kinds of ways. And so I still have all kinds of work. It just looks very different. And so part of me learning how to Sabbath well means I need to learn how to be productive during the week. And so that'll look different for everybody depending on what your schedule looks like right now.
Yeah, I think a lot of people that are now making that transition where they're working from home, it's almost like it's creating anxiety in them because there's no on and off switch. You find yourself, hey, I get up in the morning, I commute to my living room or my kitchen,
Right.
and I am now working for the first time from home, and it just never stops, and it creates anxiety. So for people like that, like carving out and preparing for a Sabbath is like a really important thing. And then there's others that like there's less work happening. You might have been laid off, or you might have reduced hours, or you're able to get things done faster at home, and now you have extra time around, and you feel like you're not doing anything. And I love what you said about there is a need to work, and for some of us that are in that situation, like there are some great things you can do, especially like engaging our community. So like we could be making phone calls to like people in our church or our neighbors, and just checking in, and that actually could be like work, right?
Yeah, a way to bless people.
Yeah, joining one of our huddles. We've got a number of different things we can do to help prepare food for some of our friends who are poor down at the meal site, because things have changed down there. And maybe even it's like even personal like projects at home. I know you're dying for me to do some projects, right? And so, or like,
Basement,
or
garage.
okay, stop. No, there's a lot of them. But there also is that like I started doing like an online class. Like if you've ever like thought, okay, and that can actually be like work. So if you are home and you don't have that, those are things that you can build in your life as work. But then the importance of what do I do to carve out and really just hold sacred this time of Sabbath.
Yes, absolutely.
So are there some tips for that?
Absolutely. And we could talk endlessly about this, but one point I really want to make, there's another quote from Eugene Peterson that I think is really beautiful. It says, Sabbath is a workshop for the practice of eternity. So it's about celebrating and enjoying God and all his good gifts. A lot of times we think of Sabbath as what you're not supposed to do. Like you're not supposed to work, you're not supposed to whatever. But it's really meant to be a gift for us to celebrate God and delight in him and his creation and the good gifts that he's given us. And so it's meant to be a gift for us. It's meant to be something we enjoy, that replenishes our soul and fills us up. And so when you think about Sabbath, there's an author and a pastor named Peter Cesaro that has done really great work. He like studied Sabbath, read every book under the sun, and then made it super user-friendly for the rest of us. And he basically says the four main components of Sabbath are to stop, rest, delight, and contemplate. And so basically it just means stopping all paid and unpaid work. And so like for me, I stopped some of my paid work, but then there's unpaid work like chores and homeschooling your kid and paying bills,
Cooking
and laundry, cleaning, budgets, returning emails, on and on and on. So there's all kinds of paid and unpaid work that we do. So we're supposed to stop all of that, even just like chores at home and anything that feels like work for you.
stop it.
Stop it. So like, for example, there's some things in that gray zone. Some people, yard work is work. For other people, yard work is a pleasure and a delight. So there are a few things that it depends on you, whether it actually fills your soul in some way. And then we need to rest. So, I mean, that seems kind of obvious, but for some of us, it means sleeping in, might mean napping, it might mean just moving slower, not being in a hurry, taking our time, physically resting. And then the delight and contemplate are very similar, and it's just, somebody described it as like a snow day. You think of your Sabbath as like this sort of unexpected gift of like, hey, I can read all day, I can stay in my jammies, I can fix hot cocoa, or, you know, all the things that we just really enjoy. And then contemplate is just really spending time as you move throughout your day, contemplating how God is loving you, his good gifts, just the goodness of God. And so part of that might mean doing some things that are different. So, for example, your Sabbath is meant to be soul food, not versus numbing. So even though we may get some pleasure out of eating like a whole gallon of ice cream and like binge watching a show on Netflix, ultimately that may not really actually feed our soul. However, watching a great movie might, and enjoying a bowl of ice cream might. And so those are all good things. And so as we're thinking about what focusing on delight for our Sabbath, what are some things like that you feel like give you life or feed your soul?
I was gonna say the ice cream thing
Yeah.
would really feed my soul, but I'm a little lactose, so it would hurt a little bit
Yeah.
later. But for me, so what's interesting is for me, I just anything that has to do with some type of creativity, like to be able to either it's draw or whether it's go build something or I don't know, come up with an idea or journal an idea. Those are really giving activities for me. But I do love the idea of like I get up, I eat breakfast, and I go back to bed for a little bit, and kind of have those moments where I like create a little bit or do and then rest and then go back and do a little activity and then go back and rest and just have those little periods throughout the day. That for me would be ideal. What about you? What do you delight in?
What's beautiful about a Sabbath is that you have permission to do that because, you know, as Jesus said, Sabbath was made for us. We weren't made for the Sabbath. So it's a gift from God to rest and restore your soul. So I made a list of things that I love, and I can't do all of these right now, obviously in quarantine, but I love good food and drinks, and I love beaches or waterfronts. I love being outside. I love, especially when the weather's nice, sunny days. I like being with people I love, and I'm thankful to be with my family, but I actually enjoy...
She says that right now.
but I enjoy
you know.
larger gatherings too. I love being with good friends. Like to me, the most ultimate day is like a group of good friends at the beach with good food and drinks. So like anything that kind of represents being outside, being with people. But I also like having time alone, especially now. Like having time alone is an important part of my being contemplative. Like actually being able to walk and talk with God and enjoy Him. I like going to the movies. I can't go to the movies now. That's my favorite versus watching them, but I can watch one at home. I like going out to eat, which we can't do, but we've decided on our Sabbath we're going to get takeout. So it's a way to enjoy good food that I don't have to prepare or that Dave doesn't have to prepare.
I've been cooking too.
We take turns. I've been
cooking too.
I like listening to or reading fiction. So a lot of times I only listen to fiction when I'm traveling. But that's like enjoyment for me. It's not like I'm having to focus. I can just enjoy a great piece of fiction. I like sleeping in or napping. So these are all things, a lot of them are things I can do now. And it's important when you think about your Sabbath, what's going to be different, because it should be set apart a little bit. So that might mean, like for me, it means after we have church in the morning, which we're currently doing online. When we're done with church, that means putting my phone away for the day and getting offline. So I might still watch like a movie at the end of the night or something, but I'm not going to return emails. I'm not going to check my Facebook. I'm not going to think about, my job. Even things around ministry, I'm not going to talk about it or make plans for it. Just spending the rest of the day kind of just enjoying the day, enjoying people around me. I'm not going to have any heavy discussions. We're not going to make big decisions about our life. It's going to be a lighter day. And so no discussions around ministry or work. It's a day to kind of sort of unplug mentally a little bit from work. So that's going to be different. Less time on my phone, less time online. And so other things you can think about, I know people who light a candle on their Sabbath and they just leave it lit all day. And it's just a constant reminder, hey, we're Sabbath. Right now we're in a period of Sabbath and we're focusing on enjoying and delighting in God and His creation and His goodness. And so what I would recommend to you as a way to get started is just maybe list out, really think about, not things you should do, not things like, a good person that does Sabbath does. What actually gives you life? Like, what do you really enjoy doing? I just talked to our youth group about this stuff, and I loved their answers. Things like baking, creating music, reading comic books, getting more sleep, working out, going for walks. One of our students talked about he loves walking on trails and taking pictures. and doing photography. And he told a story about a time that he was so enjoying it and it was so nice out, he fell asleep on the path. And I thought, that is a beautiful picture of Sabbath. Like, you're creating, you're in nature, and you're so relaxed you fall asleep. I love it. I'm like, so those are the kind of things you want to think about as you're coming up with what your day, your Sabbath might look like. And if you're like us and you have kids, right, they're still going to be around. So how might you...
Yes, they are. Yes, they are going to still be around.
Yeah. So how might you incorporate them into your Sabbath experience?
So, like, for example, we actually did, I didn't think of it as a Sabbath activity because we hadn't officially started one, but Caleb and I have been working on building his desk. And we're building a new desk, and we're outside, and we were working together on it. We designed it together, and we made all the cuts, put it together. So the whole process was really, really cool. So we were able to engage in that, and it was something that was life-giving, I think, for both of us.
Yeah.
So that's something for sure. I know Ben and I have talked about starting piano lessons and doing some things together. That's something I enjoy doing that he wants to do as well. So finding ways to just sort of incorporate them into things that you love, and then incorporating yourself into things that they love when it's appropriate too.
Sure. And I think with kids, it's, you just invite them into the process and you model it for them, but we don't want to create this legalistic idea of what you have to do. And so for me, I've told the kids, you don't have to do any chores today. You know, this is a day for you to just enjoy yourself. And then, you know, we've talked about getting takeout. So we'll talk together, hey, what takeout should we get tonight? And involve them in that process. And if we're doing a puzzle, invite them into that. But if they want to go off and do their own thing, that's okay too. I think it's more important that you do something regular every week that establishes, hey, we're having Sabbath. And this is a day we're just unplugging and enjoying each other, and invite them into that process.
And that may change your activity during that Sabbath from week to week.
Absolutely.
But what's important is that you schedule it, and that is sacred time.
Right.
Yeah.
So we just want to encourage you, again, this is going to possibly look a little different during the quarantine, but if this is not something you do at all and you feel like, hey, my rhythms are off and I don't even know where to start, this is just a great starting place to get at least the rhythm of work and rest in place. And then you can start fine-tuning a rhythm, a daily rhythm, which we're still trying to figure out ourselves. But sometimes it's really helpful just to start with the bigger and very important practice, core spiritual practice of Sabbath. And we're hoping for our church community that continues on even, well into the future. And that's something we're working on in our family, and we'd love to talk to you more about how you might make that a reality in your family.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, that's it for the first ever wellness. What is it calling it? Wednesday Wellness.
Check. Wednesday Wellness check.
We'll see you next week, 8 o'clock, Facebook Live. Be there. Bye.
Bye.